Hi, kites and kingfishers. We are going to be using relative clauses today. We looked at relative clauses last week. Do you remember I did a little video where I got a piece of paper and some of you sent in your versions of these, and we opened out the window. So we had a simple sentence, and then we opened up the window and I had more information, and then a comma, and then finished the sentence. And you've started using them in your biographies. However, nice conjunction there, Mrs. Wild. However, you're not using them enough, and I want you to practice using them more. And we're going to come up with some sentences today that will be really useful for you to then magpie from yourself, just plonk them into your biography that you're going to be writing in a few days' time. So it's a really good opportunity to practice. So what is a relative clause? Just to remind you, what is a relative clause? Have a think, just check, think about the work that you did last week where we added more information in. Okay, so a relative clause. Ooh, not going to tell you, it seems. There we go. A relative clause gives information about a noun. So it gives you more information about a noun. So what is a noun? A noun is a thing, a person, a place, or a feeling. So a noun might be a table, a chair, a radiator, a window. Just looking at things around me now. A carpet. It might be a person, so it might be someone's name, or a place, or it can even be a feeling, an emotion. Less so for a relative clause, though. So you find your noun, and then you add more information to it. So let's have a look at a sentence here. So it says, I'm just going to move myself out your way. There we go. So the bicycle was at the back of the shed. So where's our noun in that sentence? Have a think, where's our noun? Is this a noun? Is this a noun? Is this a noun? Which of these is a thing that you can hold? A thing or a person, place, or feeling? So yeah, a bicycle is a noun. So we could have a relative clause telling us more about the bicycle. We could also, because shed is also a noun, have some information about the shed. So I have, I need to come out of this. I'm just going to make it a bit bigger. Can I get rid of that? Okay. So the bicycle was at the back of the shed can become the bicycle. And now I'm going to put my relative clause in, so I'm going to describe the bicycle, say more about the bicycle. My relative pronoun, which is going to be either that, which, who, whom, sometimes even where is used. So the bicycle, which, so that's my relative pronoun, which, I'm going to underline it, was broken. I'm describing the bicycle. I'm saying it was broken. The bicycle, which was broken, was at the back of the shed. Was at the back of the shed. Now, I don't want it all underlined. Thank you. I've just underlined the relative pronoun. The relative clause is the bit in between the commas. It's that extra information. That's the whole relative clause. Which was broken. Was at the back of the shed. I could have written something describing the shed instead. So my relative clause doesn't have to be in the middle of the sentence. The bicycle was at the back of the shed, and then I can just say something about the shed, which was yellow. I could, of course, just say the yellow shed as an adjective, but I'm using a relative clause, which was yellow, with my relative pronoun, which. And the reason I've used which and not who is because the shed and the bicycle aren't proper nouns. They're not people. The next example is a person. It's Hannah. Hannah had finished her book. Hannah's always reading books. So again, we've got two different nouns. We've got Hannah, which is a proper noun, and we've got book, which is also a noun. So we can describe either of those with our relative clause. If I'm going to describe Hannah, I have to use the relative pronoun who. So, Hannah, who was always reading, there's my relative clause, who was always reading. Notice I've got a comma before who and after reading, had finished her book. And then I could put both. It doesn't sound brilliant having too many relative clauses together, but let's do it now. Hannah, who was always reading, had finished her book, which was by Holly Webb. I think Hannah reads Holly Webb quite a lot. I think she's just done a biography on Holly Webb, if I remember correctly. So, Hannah, who was always reading, had finished her book, which was by Holly Webb. So I've got a relative pronoun here for who, which is in my relative clause, and I've got a relative pronoun here, which, and my relative clause is which was by Holly Webb. And I don't need a comma after it because I've got a full stop at the end of my sentence. Whereas here I've got a comma before and after my relative clause. So let's have a look at how that's going to apply to what you're doing today. Oh, we don't need that. So, growing up in America, Martin Luther King knew that he needed to change things. So these are the sentences you've been given, and you need to add a relative clause to them. Growing up in America, so where's my noun? America's a noun. Martin Luther King is a noun. So which one am I going to describe with a relative clause? I think I'm going to say, I don't think I need to say much about America. I'm going to talk about Martin Luther King. Growing up in America, Martin Luther King, and I'm going to need who, not which, because he's a person. So Martin Luther King, who is still known today for his contribution to equal rights, comma, after my relative clause, knew that he needed to change things. And then I'm just going to get rid of the highlighted nouns. Here's my relative clause. So around my relative clause, I have commas. See, I've got a comma before it and a comma after it. Is there a problem with spacing? Yes, there is. Growing up in America, Martin Luther King, who is still known today for his contribution to equal rights, knew that he needed to change things. So it's just given a bit more information about my noun, Martin Luther King. So I would use that in my introduction, I think. Throughout his life, he faced intimidation and harassment. So where are my nouns? I need to find my nouns. Throughout his life, he faced intimidation and harassment. So they're things that have happened to him, intimidation and harassment. What am I going to write about his life? Throughout his life, I'm going to describe his life, which was cut short throughout his life, which was unfortunately, was cut short, he faced intimidation and harassment. So I've added extra information about his life, just a short bit of information as a relative clause, using my relative pronoun, which. Notice that I've also included some conjunctions. We're still talking about conjunctions, however, due to, and despite. So we're putting all of our information together. Have a go at adding some relative clauses yourself to these sentences. And then I've said now write at least 3 sentences of your own. Include a relative clause that you can use in your biography of Martin Luther King. Now, when I was coming up with my sentences, I found it easiest to come up with some basic sentences and then say, right, where's my noun? And add my relative clause in to describe the nouns. That's, I think, an easier way of doing it. But if you think of one straight away, a sentence that has a relative clause in it that you can write about Martin Luther King, then brilliant, write that down and send me your pictures.